Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. How you doing this evening?
A whole lot better than last week.
Good. And I'm doing well too. And I could totally understand how days at work can just derail your entire day. So no worries. I got good bandwidth tonight, so shouldn't have any technical issues.
Yeah, well, I think what people don't realize is because of we have a big challenge. It's kind of amazing that we're able to do this once a week because of a big thing they call time differences.
Yeah.
And for me, because of my time zone, when we record, it's about an hour plus, maybe an hour and 10 minutes after I get off of work. So it's a very quick turnaround to go from work mode to, hey, let's talk about TV and fun stuff.
Yeah.
And last week, unfortunately, leading up to my off time, just things spiraled and I was facing a lot of stress. So, and I admit, last week we should have just canceled, but for whatever reason, I was stubborn. And when I'm stubborn, I make stupid decisions, as we all do.
Oh no, it's fine, Sarah. It happens. You know, we were able to do the live show, and thanks to everyone who watched us live and who watched the what we were able to put together from the live show, because my internet here at the house, everybody was on their devices, so it killed the bandwidth. So we apologize for that, but we'll do it again, and we're planning on moving our recording time to Sunday night so that we can hopefully have no distractions, so we can just always try to crank out awesome content for you guys. So
yeah, and timely content. We tend to move our schedule around based on shows we're covering and when they're releasing. And so brace yourselves for this Sunday. We're going to go full Doom Patrol Season 2. Very excited about that.
Yes.
But speaking about moving, we did get some news this week, and it's official. Cobra Kai is now a Netflix show.
Yes, it is. To be determined when it's going to drop, but I know I think we talked offline from the show about this move a few weeks ago. Whenever I guess YouTube was getting out of the scripted show business, and so several networks were bidding for Cobra Kai, which is, if anybody's listened to our show over the last few years, we this has been one that we have covered and found enjoyable. It really is a fun show, and definitely should go check it out. But yeah, it became official. They're going to Netflix.
They're going to Netflix, and I will tell you that also means there's no excuse. You have to get caught up. You have to watch the second season. The second season finale, I think, is really critical. But what they do with the whole arc of the characters, I think you have to almost watch season 2 before you can watch season 3. And I tend to be a person where I'm like, no, you can just jive right in, you'll be fine. But they are, as much as they just want to be nostalgic factor 101, they really bring the writing to these characters, to these new characters, and put a twist on this idea of apprentice and mentor. And I think it's really a good, well-written series. I will say that.
Yeah, it is. And both William Zabka and Ralph Macchio are co-executive producers of this thing. And it's just really, it's a fun take to see these characters as adults and seeing how the dynamics from their battles in the movies go into the next generation of characters.
And speaking about streaming services and some changes, the other day Apple TV came out with an epic trailer for a Series 2 debut when everything will be debuting in 2021.
Yeah.
Foundation. is going to be the next big Apple TV series, and potentially they are aiming it to be the next you have to watch it epic thriller, Battlestar Galactica, Game of Thrones, Star Trek. And it is based on a series of novels, or at least one novel. I'm not really sure about that background, but
Yeah, series.
I
Yeah.
like this trailer. I like the ambition. I don't think they gave you a clear storyline, but we all know me. I tend to hate trailers when they tell you beat for beat what to expect in the first episode, and this did not do that at all.
Yeah.
But you really felt the gravitas. You
Mhm.
felt how large and the size of this. And I really appreciated it, and it looks beautiful.
It does.
Beautiful.
It really does. Yeah. 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 It is, like you said, it is based off Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, and he's, of course, as far as sci-fi writers, he's on the Mount Rushmore of authors, along with Arthur C. Clarke and so and H.G. Wells and others. So, yeah. I was blown away by this trailer. I missed it when it first dropped, and I'm glad when I saw you sent out the rundown for the week. I'm glad it triggered that me to go watch this trailer, because I felt if you haven't seen the trailer, you're actually missing out, because it's really, as you said, it's epic scale. It's like theatrical scale, as far as, and this is going to be a TV series. And it has, as far as the story, I think they were starting production, and of course, like everything else, COVID messed it up. But David Goyer, who was behind the Batman Begins, and also another one of our favorites, Krypton, is the showrunner, and he actually gives a little narration in the trailer, just to sort of set the stage for what their goals and ambitions are for the series, and also just a little bit of product placement, since it was released during Apple's product rollout this week. So, but that being said, Goyer is a very great storyteller. I mean, if you guys, as you all know, we really enjoyed the work that he did with Cam Welsh on Krypton, and of course Batman Begins. So I going into this, I have very high expectations of not being disappointed.
Well, don't say that. That just makes me want the show to suck, so you come back all disappointed. Fickle thing.
Yeah, they are a fickle thing. But right now, I mean, just the visuals of it alone will keep me there, even if the story doesn't. And so, I will freely admit I have not read the Foundation series by Asimov, even though I'm familiar with them. But I think I have time, and my library is doing drive-by books, so I think I know what I'll be checking out here over the next few weeks.
I'm glad you brought up that he was behind Krypton, because I was going to say that I got some serious Krypton vibes watching the trailer. I mean, it's a given space, but also you get a sense of Shakespeare in it. And that's really what it needs to come across. I mean, we've seen sci-fi is a very tricky genre to tackle, because it can either be all spectacle and no character development, or just really dull, and you want more, and it can't be just to tell. I don't know where I'm going with this clearly, but I hope that it meets the expectations, because to put out a trailer like this so far in advance, you're setting yourself up for either a huge success or a huge failure, depending on the outcome. So they need to deliver. That's all.
They do, and Apple TV need a hit. I mean, they had the morning show, which got a lot of buzz, and then I think I know they had a Jason Momoa show. Was it Sleep? I think what was it called?
I don't know what you're talking about, but Defending Jacob was on there, Chris Evans' show, and that one got a lot of hype around it. Morning show definitely did. Servant, M. Night Shyamalan's series. Personally, after binge watching Morning Show and a little bit of Defending Jacob, I unsubscribed. But that is to be expected, in my opinion, with these streaming services.
Yeah.
You have to have a lineup. You have to be willing to say, okay, then they're going to want to retain their subscription because after this show concludes, this one's coming out. And this and that. And I've noticed, because I was shocked after watching Morning Show, I was looking around and thinking, well, where is everything else? I thought they had more to offer. And in a way, I think I understood their strategy because they had a lot of content, but all of the content was very niche. And so there wasn't a real good amount of overlap. So if you like the Morning Show, you might like Defending Jacob, but those were also released so far apart. So you could easily turn off your subscription for a few months before restarting it for the next show. So I think they got some strategy to work out, but I will say the quality that they're putting out there in terms of just cinematography is on par with HBO dramas. And that says a lot. That's really hard to do. That
is very high praise there to say that they are on par with HBO, because I did rewatch some of Watchmen this past weekend, and just again was blown away by the production quality, and even the new HBO Max series. I started Perry Mason, and again it had that same cinematic theatrical feel that HBO shows are known for. So so you're spot on that.
All right, so now we do have to talk about, because you always want to talk about it, even though I don't really ever want to talk about it. The brand, the franchise in the room. It's the twice removed cousin. It's the DCEU.
Yeah, it is.
I can't say it ever. All right, so we got a few things of news. And one day, I'm never going to have to talk about this, but apparently today's not the day. Henry Cavill says he would like to play Superman for years to come. All right. So, Will, is there anything beyond just that simple statement that we have to elaborate on?
I think a few weeks back, there was stories sort of percolating around that Henry Cavill was coming back to play Superman, and we talked about it a little bit, but this just sort of, I guess, reinforces that point that he will be back. More likely than not, it won't be a standalone film, but he just really, I think the real takeaway from that article I read in Variety was that he just really loves this character, and he talks about how he, as an individual and an actor, carries himself a certain way because of the expectations of portraying Superman, and I guess he doesn't want to end up like stories like Ezra Miller that we also have seen from this franchise.
Yeah. That's great. I bet Andrew Garfield loved playing Spider-Man as well.
Yeah,
but we don't want him to be Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, I like Henry Cavill as Superman. I really do. It dawned on me that he's actually played this character now in 3 films, and Man of Steel, I think, has aged well, and it
I'm indifferent about him as Superman.
Huh.
It's never about, to me, how do I put this? I think with Joaquin Phoenix as Joker, that performance and that movie proved, honestly, if the story is well written, it just elevates that character.
Mhm.
And that's been Henry Cavill's issue, is I don't think he is often in the Superman movies. I mean, to your point, it's easy to forget how many movies he's been in, because 2 of them, he's not even the star necessarily. Yeah. It's all about Batman. And I think that's another thing that, and this will lead into our next topic, is DC, for whatever reason, has just, it needs to distance itself almost from Batman. I know, hot take, but they have never done themselves any services or favors by keeping this character in such a spotlight and not really focusing on the other characters and how to bring them up. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of us, and of course, naturally, we compare to Marvel, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But Robert Downey Jr., he comes on the scene, he makes Iron Man this big hero. Mm-hmm. But then they don't keep that at the forefront. They allow Captain America to swoop in and suddenly become a standout. The Guardians of the Galaxy. So there isn't really this team quality or this team cohesion happening in DC, and it's just about Batman. Let's reinvent this. Let's even make movies about the villains in Batman.
True. Yeah, I mean, you got Joker, you got Harley Quinn. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No, I'm not. And so you can imagine my thoughts on the news that also came out this week about Michael Keaton coming back as Batman in the next Flash movie, whenever that actually starts.
Yeah.
And happens.
Yeah. This film has been delayed 5 years. 5.
What's the biggest crime? The delays with the Flash movie or New Mutants?
Oh. Yeah. Well, yeah, gosh, New Mutants. I had forgotten about that one. That was it just whenever it was finally going to get his moment to shine, COVID came. But it's talk about 2 snake bit films. They just can't catch a break. But at least I think they finally have settled on a director, Anthony Machete, and the Birds of Prey scriptwriter is I think on board to write the script for the Flash film. And all the looks like with the news of Keaton, we're gonna get a version of Flashpoint closer to the one that's in the comic than what we saw in the Arrowverse.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting, depending on when this movie, or if this movie ever gets made and he's in it, and then where that release date falls in line with Spider-Man, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Keaton is a villain in Spider-Man right now as well.
Yes. Yep.
Juggling a lot of balls there.
Yeah. I see what you're going. I see where you're going there. Yeah, that scheduling will be definitely will be an issue there, because I think the Vulture is he slated to be in Spider-Man 3?
I don't know. I honestly have no idea, but there was that tie-in with Morbius. Remember that movie?
Yep. That's another one that got delayed.
It's so sad to me. How many when I'm on YouTube, whenever a movie trailer is an option to watch, and I'm reminded about all the things I was excited for in the first 2 months of this year that have all been put on hold or delayed.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, I don't even like with Wonder Woman 84. I know they have a new date for it, but I don't even commit it to memory because I figured it's probably gonna get changed again. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're walking. It is a fascinating time, as we always say here. But I also, to your point about we're gonna get potentially a Flashpoint-esque, but it's gonna be more like Crisis. And I keep thinking about what other people have said regarding why not do it with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and have the father play that character. What is the purpose of Michael Keaton?
we'll see. And that's the thing about where I wonder, because I don't know how familiar you are with the actual the comic book version of Flashpoint.
You have told me about it, and from what I recall in that conversation, you mentioned how it was this big event, but at the end of the day, it was also about fathers and sons.
Exactly, and family, because the idea, and this is not a spoiler. I mean, I think it's a bit, the whole reason why Flashpoint happens is Barry goes back in time to prevent the death of his mother, and so in doing so, it creates the multiverse. Well, it opens it doesn't create the multiverse, but we do go into the multiverse and see an alternate version of everything that we know as far as the current DC universe. And so Thomas Wayne is the Batman in this universe, and so I did see rumors that Jeffrey Dean Morgan was going to play Thomas Wayne in this film. So so maybe we will, maybe that's the universe that we'll see Barry Allen in, and of course with the with the TV Crisis on Infinite Earths, and seeing that scene with Ezra Miller's Flash and Grant Gustin's Flash. I mean, that's a good way to tie all these shows and all these things together.
So wait a second.
I was going to say, so I think with Keaton, I think it could just be a cameo. Right.
But you're also kind of skirting around this idea of the DCEU, the loyal and the all-knowing franchise creators are going to take two huge events in comic books and mesh them together in a 2-hour movie. Where does that sound familiar? I think, yep. Isn't that what they call Batman v Superman? I remember hearing a lot about how it's as if they took two different arcs and squished them together into one movie, and it did all right.
It did all right. Well, I think how they could tie in the Arrowverse Crisis into this film is, if I recall, in Justice League, was he called the Flash at that point, or?
Well, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about because they're two different runs, right? You have Flashpoint and you have Crisis.
Yeah. But
it sounds almost like there's a potential where this movie would combine aspects of both and mesh them together. And my point is, I think they've tried that before. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't do that, because their source material is so strong. Mm-hmm. Why muddle it with bringing in another story? The animated movies have proven that you can tell that story within an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yeah, and if you don't, you should. And speaking of Flashpoint, if you do want to see that story, definitely check out Justice League Flashpoint. It's on the DC Universe app, and it really is a really awesome film. So that's why I'm kind of thinking that's why I said I think it'll be a version of Flashpoint, because this story has been told in other mediums so many times. I don't know when they adapted to the as a feature film, that's where I think they could like throw in some of the stuff from the Arrowverse to try to mix it up a little bit. But who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see for sure. I wasn't overly thrilled, and I didn't get that reaction from a lot of people. So, and you know, the good news is we're talking about the DCEU, and they have never changed their minds about anything. Remember that slate they were dropped in 2014?
Yep.
Oh man. All right. So that is enough of news. Now we have to talk about some Stargirl. And I'm just trying to remind myself of what happened. This episode was odd. In the sense that, first of all, it is the most fast moving episode of this season.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe when it was over because I was, and there was, and I don't know why, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or a good thing, but it felt really, the pace was, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then next thing you know, it's all over. This typical episode. I mean, of course, now that you've found all of your team members, you got to go and experiment and bring Pat in. And that last scene with Courtney and Pat just proves what we were talking about last week. Those two together elevate this show. Mm-hmm. And there were a few weeks there where they didn't have as much screen time, and that was kind of weighing it down. But that final scene said, no, this dynamic is crucial because he grounds her in that protective, fatherly way, and she needs that, especially with how she treats Beth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or arguably her whole team. I mean, they even pointed out to her that her decision making at times can be a bit selfish when they say, "Oh, you're gonna give back your stuff, right? You're asking us to give up our stuff, but what about you?"
What about you? Exactly. What about you? What about you, Courtney? Are you gonna? Yeah. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna give it back? But yeah, it was a faster paced episode, and I think one of the reasons why is we had some fighting this week. And some action, because it seems like the last couple of weeks has been a lot of exposition, and also and needed world and building, as far as we learned about Wildcat and her backstory and why she is the ostracized kid at school, and with Beth, we still haven't gotten a full depth of her backstory, other than we know her parents are very worried about her, always just not having friends and stuff, and we're encouraging her to do so, and she just happened to see Courtney and Wildcat the night at the hospital when they were trying to learn more about brainwave and so
I'm betting her father is in the Injustice Society.
It wouldn't surprise me, the way they've been setting up things with this show. But whenever I saw Sportsmaster this week, it reminded me of our discussion with the pilot about how they dropped a lot of little hints and stuff, and a lot of character moments, and how certain parts that were cut in the CW version, I was glad I watched the DC Universe version, because even though it was the whole Pat working out scene and stuff, it seemed kind of extraneous at the time. Seeing Sportsmaster come back in this episode, and being the musclehead and some of the things that the gambler talks to him about, whenever Sportsmaster and Tigress like kill the coach, and again creating a mess to clean up.
Right.
Yeah.
I also like they chose really like the forethought. I mean, to your point, placing those Easter eggs. I remember them even pointing out Artemis when Beth and Yolanda were trying to find new recruits, and they were talking because she was the best athlete in the school. And those little things, but to then put them in this episode and them be the bad guys, the pairing of the Hourman versus Sportsmaster and Tigress versus Wildcat, I was just like, that is storytelling. I mean, it's one thing. It's not like what we're used to, where at the beginning of the episode, they do a 2-minute clip and this is your villain of the week. No, these characters live in this world, and the writers establish that. And then, of course, at this point, everyone is either in Injustice Society or Justice Society. It's official, this town. I don't know why it's called Blue Valley.
Blue Valley,
Should be called Justice something, but Town of Justice. But I think that it was really smart, and to your point about the action, even the action and the way the characters were using their powers, especially with the kids, and how you're here, you feel like you deserve this, and you can do it, but you don't understand your technology. It's very similar to Spider-Man and Homecoming. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of us liked about that movie and that story arc, is that it's a kid who's given these powers. He's not going to initially know what to do with it. There's going to need to be time, and so I thought it was like, again, I'm not mad that it was a quick episode. It was very well paced, and overall, even though it was a lot more action and not a lot of exposition, it was very well crafted.
Yeah. That was my big takeaway from this episode too. Was it really it was a good payoff for me, because we labored as viewers to learn about these characters, and they didn't drop all these things in the first 2 or 3 episodes as far as building a team, and then having everything just sort of rolling from that. I mean, they really did take the time to try to get us somewhat invested in these individuals in the first season. And then we, as you noted, it was very like Homecoming-esque, where these are kids, and we were reminded of that when they were having to go up against Sportsmaster and Tigress, because these are two seasoned villains who've commented on how they have fought the prior Justice Society, and of course Jordan, when they had their Injustice Roundtable, reminded that they brought up the history in that scene, and how they took the one team out, so we're going to have to do it with the next one. So it really, I really like that, and it's better than it's a nice blend of serialized storytelling, but also with good fleshed out villains, unlike the things we've seen in the Arrowverse many times. With the villain of the week who just kind of pops up, and they're always like, oh, it's a bad guy, but really it's just like it's a MacGuffin. There's like, i.e., Godspeed. Really, it's not driving anything.
I knew you were going to throw some flash shade. I knew it, but to that point, what really made me walk away and thinking that I'm not mad at this episode at all. Satisfied is a great word choice for it. Is when they mention Jordan can't move forward with his plan because he needs, what is that first villain that they killed? Or not killed, but coma.
Brainwave.
Yeah. So he can't move forward with his plan because Brainwave is unconscious and in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment they drop that, I'm sitting here like, well, that's brilliant, because that first episode, it would be very easy for them to say, okay, that takes away Brainwave and no need for him. He was just the introductory villain to this whole thing. But now there's a use, and Courtney doesn't even realize that what she managed to do in that first episode is really giving them time. And so I really like that idea of that they've unknowingly already stopped the plan in motion, and Jordan now is on the hunt. Of course, he's going to come across Brainwave's son, and then that's going to lead to a whole other thing. And there was also that hint and that tee up of his own son, and I'm very curious about how they're going to end this season and where all these characters are going to be, just because, I mean, in a lot of shows we're watching, Black Lightning is a good example of this. Jefferson and his daughters and his wife, of course, that's a nuclear family with superpowers and how they deal with the world. This show is not about a nuclear family, but a town with multiple families who have different loyalties, but these powers and the idea of legacy. I mean, we talk a lot about that, especially with everything that happened on Arrow this past year and two. The passing of the mantle, they've set up a lot of dominoes almost.
They have.
So I'm really curious of where they're gonna go with everything.
Yeah. I am as well, and and to something you brought up earlier about Pat and Courtney sort of grounding the show and that relationship being so critical. I think now that they are built the team, we're going to see Pat's fatherly mentoring influence wrap around the other kids as well. And because I think the other thing that dawned on me also with this show, especially seeing how they built the new Justice Society, is that this is actually an ensemble show,
right? And
each member of the team has a role, and they've learned. I think they, again, contrast this with other casts that we've seen in this universe, because it is blended now because of Crisis. We've seen other shows sometimes reduce the role for supporting characters and to their detriment. And at least so far with this show, they've taken the best of the DC universe, when I think about like Doom Patrol and even Titans to some extent, and really rounding out their ensemble cast, and each member has a good role, and there's no wasted episodes on these individuals. They really do have integral parts to the story, and to date, that's what Stargirl has done very well, in my opinion. Of using these characters, even though we haven't learned much about Beth, we know we can see where they're going with her story, and at some point in this first season, we're going to learn more about her, and like you said, I mean, it could be that her father is indeed part of the Injustice Society or has a role in Jordan's plans, just like, I would say that one character, even Courtney's mother this week has got, they built the relationship with her and Mike with the science fair.
Yeah.
So, and and I think I did, spoiler alert, read some teasers that she's going to play some role in Jordan. We know that she's going to play some role in Jordan's plan. They've teased that. So I mean, everybody has like you said, this town, everyone is like so interconnected and yeah, it should be like Justiceville because everybody has a role to play.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that I don't know why they chose to call this show Stargirl, because it's about so much more than just Courtney's story, and I think that I almost like the episodes better when it's not solely focused on her. And I'll admit I still have issues with that actress. just like Pat needs to teach her how to train, Luke Wilson needs to do some acting coaching, but she's still a kid, so we're used to quote unquote adults acting, and it's a different thing. So give her some time, but
give her some time. And it is, she is playing a teenager, so we're seeing them, all of them mature in front of our eyes. Even it's not like they're 40-year-olds playing 15-year-olds like they did in 90210. So
right. You just had to go there. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I think it'll be probably, we won't be covering it on Sunday because this episode will drop that night, or the next episode will drop that night. But so it'll be a few weeks before we return back to Justiceville 2.0, Young Justice. But you know what, Will? We almost made it out of here with me continuing to forget to bring up Billions season 5.
I wasn't going to let you, don't worry.
You weren't going to let me? Okay. Well, I caught myself. I didn't let me forget either, which listeners, I have been watching. I don't know why I haven't brought it up on the show. Probably because every show is clouded under the umbrella that is COVID, and Billions released their first 7 episodes of the season. They will release the remaining episodes. They usually have a 13 or a 12 episode season. So we can expect those after they return to shooting and wrap it all up. I disagree with a lot of people. I've been seeing some comments about season 5. A lot of people don't like it. I actually really like season 5. I really do, because one of the reasons why season 1 drew me in was because of the dynamic between Axe and Wendy. Mm-hmm. And this season and how they've left off season 4, we're getting infinitely more Jax and Wendy and their relationship. And I'm so mad at COVID right now, because I know that the writers are setting up some big reveal about their history. And I'm anxiously waiting to understand it, to see if all my suspicions have been correct. But and also I think that the show season 4 felt like a lesser version of season 2. And so I didn't really care for that season, but it did lead us to do a fresh restart on the series and put things in a much more even playing field. And I like what's going on. I don't know. I enjoy the season. It's not at season 2 level, but then again, the show has a tendency to, the season has arcs, and we're still on the incline, and this whole delay is really preventing the fallout from happening. So I'm not too, I guess maybe that's why it keeps slipping my mind, is because I still feel like I'm just going up the roller coaster and we haven't been able to go down.
Gotcha. Okay. I heard that in the I guess mid-season break they actually worked in COVID. Did I read that somewhere, or as far as why, or maybe I'm thinking about another show, but I thought they went meta.
Nope.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
okay.
Nope.
Maybe I'm thinking about another show.
No. It was really clear that the writers were not expecting to be told they had to stop shooting.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised though if season 6 it has some kind of COVID reference. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of shows did something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It wouldn't be. Yeah, I know. I was reading where I think this real world events. Overtaking things. I saw where like Terry Crews was talking about how they were having to basically to scrap the whole season 8 storyline for Brooklyn Nine-Nine because of all the things that's been happening with police issues and whatnot. So yeah, you're right. I'm sure a lot of shows will probably, especially some of the more scripted dramas, will probably work those storylines in.
Yeah, or anything that's happening right now. I mean,
Yeah.
COVID, it's fascinating how it trends to being most talked about to other things overshadowing it. There's a lot of different things going on in the world today.
Yeah.
That it's I don't know. I'm always left speechless. I mean, what do you say? What do you do? So
Yeah, exactly.
on that note, I think it's it for us tonight. Will,
Yeah.
why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me and help me get a break from all the craziness in the world at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.